Hi,
Yeah.
so let's get started.
Hi. Yeah, let's get started. So, Kelly, by way of introducing yourself, do you want to say a couple of things, just like two lines to like encapsulate like some of the, how you would, just two lines, that's it. um,
Okay.
about who you are and like some of the important things that you feel like you do in life.
Oh, okay. So, to introduce myself, my name's Kelly Edwards. I am Colombian American. My mother's Colombian. My father's from the USA, originally from Erie, Pennsylvania, and uh, and I am a former teacher, former elementary school teacher, and currently work as a marriage and family therapist, and also as a sex ed instructor. And what was your important things that I do in the world? I think let's so those things being a therapist, being a sex educator, mostly to middle school and high school age students. We do see some elementary school students as well. And I would say allyship is another important thing that I do, is being an ally to the LGBTQ community and an, an ally to humans in general, I would add.
I like that. Yeah,
Yeah. You said
great.
in there, former teacher. I was a former teacher too. So when someone says former, so now I get curious. What did you do that you're calling former that I'll probably tell you still are?
Okay, so I was a bilingual fourth grade teacher for 4 years, and I was a uh, and then switched to a different school, and I was a Spanish teacher for four
Hmm.
years, kind of almost like a specials teacher, we call it in Texas. So I would go classroom to classroom teaching Spanish.
So all the age groups. The fourth grade is bilingual teacher, and then what grades did you work with after that? All of them.
Uh, Second through fifth grade.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. And you mentioned that you teach sex ed now. So, in a way, you're still teaching?
Yes, that's true. I started teaching sex ed in the Peace Corps. It was a George W. Bush initiative of uh, HIV/AIDS prevention in all Peace Corps host countries. So my last year in service, I did a lot of like teaching condom use and stuff like that in rural villages.
What country?
Honduras.
Honduras.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, you have a lot of different experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so, I'm curious, we all have kids. And I wonder if maybe we could talk a little bit, about kids, um, Kelly, because you're teaching, you work with kids, and you have your own. And I think that probably one of the most challenging spaces in my life, or one of the spaces where I grow the most, are in my relationships with my kids. And so I wonder if we could talk a little bit about that. And I'm really curious about how what you've learned from your experiences in raising your kids.
Sure. So I have two kids that are 14 and 11. I'm using gender neutral words because my youngest kid came out as non-binary this year, um, and my oldest child is 14. He's a boy. He wouldn't mind me saying that. And I think in the early stages of parenthood, I think there I put pressure on myself. Maybe there's societal pressure of what am I going to teach my kids? And I think something I love from my relationship with my kids is how much I've learned from them.
Oh, that's so good.
It's so I feel like I always had a sense that my youngest kid was LGBTQ and and increased my allyship because of that. And also there were times when I would pick them up from camp and oh well there was this issue we had with your kid because people were picking on them for wearing pink and and what they taught what what kind of their go-to phrase was all colors are for all people. And I was like, why is that such a radical statement for this pre-K age child to be saying to people, or for counselors to be like, oh, I never thought of that. Um, and so like learning from them, increasing my allyship, and also just like noticing how when we gender things, like as a couples counselor, I see a lot of heterosexual couples. And sometimes I'll hear phrases like, well, as a man, I can't, et cetera, right? And I think we're really limiting ourselves if we're just thinking in terms of, as a man, I can only do this. Or as a woman, she needs to blank, 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 right?
Yeah, I'm curious as you say that, Kelly, what do you think in these heterosexual relationships, what are we being robbed of in relationship when we are limiting ourselves in these gendered ways?
Well, I think we've all heard that gender is a social construct. And with that, we have these ideas that like a man is supposed to be this, or a man is supposed to, um, women should do more of the at home child, right? Ask your mom about this kind of thing. So I think, and I think there is also the emotional component of, you know, I think men are taught this kind of emotional stoicism, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like it's okay to be angry, but other than that, you shouldn't really show any other emotions. Other than that, it should just be
Yeah.
cool, calm, and collected. Other than anger is okay every once in a while because, well, you're a man,
Mhm.
and that's what men do. So I think that emotional stoicism, I think limits. I think especially now to use some gendered language is limiting towards men, right?
Yeah.
Of not allowed to say this. I'm not allowed to bring this up. I'm going to come across as needy or dramatic, or I'm going to be accused of being sensitive if I
Oh,
bring this up.
yeah.
And that is almost, I think it's changing a bit, but it's almost like it's like the male kryptonite in some ways. If you're said to be too sensitive or needy,
Yeah.
right? It
Yeah.
does something inside to a lot of men to be accused of being needy.
Yeah. If we had a world where that was okay, what would change?
Mm, what a great question. Um, I think a lot of things could change with that, right? I think men could be more available, not just emotionally available, but I think men could start. It would be easier for men to start difficult conversations rather than avoid them.
Yeah. Yeah, you talk about seeing heterosexual couples. Whenever I see heterosexual couples in my practice, it's usually um, one of them, and it's usually the woman in the relationship bringing both of them in because something is not okay. And
Mhm.
often that's the first time he's getting to actually talk about problems, not just reacting to something being wrong because she thinks that it's wrong. Yeah.
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 And then I would add that, I think we haven't said the word patriarchy yet, but I think under the patriarchy, there is this power over
Yeah.
sentiment, right? Of like uh, a strong man is more powerful than his peers. A strong man is the leader of the household. All these things, and I think it does a lot of injustice to kids because that's when it starts, and
Yeah. Could you say
where
more about that? Like what injustice is happening to kids specifically, or that wouldn't happen if a man was more available?
um, so okay, one injustice is where that's being modeled for kids, right? That men aren't supposed to cry, men aren't supposed to be emotional, these kind of things, right? And I think so in that modeling, kids pick up on that and internalize it of my peers are going to make fun of me if I tear up in front of them, right? Even at elementary school
Oh,
age, when
yeah.
it's still
Yeah, that's right.
developmentally appropriate for
Yeah.
everyone to cry.
Yeah.
It's so there is this. Um, I think Bell Hooks refers to it as emotional violence that boys do towards each other, right?
Yeah.
Of there's a look, or there's like a homophobic slur, or there's something, pink is a girl's color. Why would you wear that? These kind of things that boys will internalize. And even though that could be part of a personality, and I'm not even talking about gender fluidity or sexual identity, but it could just be like, I like pink and it makes me feel good to wear pink. But somehow we have these rigid gender constructs that don't allow that. So there's like, I'm not talking about overt bullying, but sometimes there is, or,
Yeah.
oh, we're going to exclude this kid because this is what they wear, or they like to play with dolls, or right. And kind of boys know, like, there's this social piece to it too, that I
Yeah.
don't want to be a social outcast. And at the time, in elementary school, there's a lot of segregation by gender, especially when you get into the older grades, right? Kind of kindergarten and first grade, no one really cares. And then something happens where, like, third, fourth, and fifth grade, there's a lot of segregation in genders, like girls' side of the lunch table, boys' side of the lunch table. Boys do this during recess, girls do this during recess. And there's not a lot of
Yeah. I have much smaller kids, and I'm actually really surprised sometimes the things I hear, um, because I don't remember anyone ever overtly saying anything to the kids, but there is a knowing, there's like an understanding that this is how you act when you're a boy.
yes.
And it is very surprising to me how early that's learned. Or like that if you have long hair, that you must be a girl. And that to me yeah, it was very surprising that this is almost absorbed in the air. It almost doesn't have to be said. And so that emotional violence piece is really, that's very evocative because it definitely feels like that. I'm curious, Kelly, as I hear you talk, I'm kind of thinking back on what you said about your background and where
Mm-hmm.
you've been culturally. I'm curious to know, um, as you yourself have grown up, how, what has been your relationship to patriarchy? And and I guess the second part of that is what have you learned or unlearned over the years to
Mm.
become or to continue to keep becoming who you are?
Well, I think part of my story starts with my name, Kelly, which I like it today. It took me a while to get there. Moving, I lived in Latin America for early parts of my life due to my dad's job, and moved to had different schools, and then ended up in the Midwest in a medium-sized town called Columbus, Indiana, for eighth grade through college. Uh, and so it was pretty common for me to get the question, "Are you a boy or girl?" First day of school, to be misgendered, right? My first day of Spanish class, I was called Senorita Edwards, and I had to correct them and say Senora Edwards. Um, and also, like, why do you have a girl's name? And then this in Latin America, Kelly does not exist as it exists as a girl's name, but never as a boy's name. It has some like Irish history as a boy's name in the U.S., and then it's not very common as a boy's name currently, but it used to be more common. And so, even as an adult, I'll introduce myself as Kelly, and people will tell me, "No, that can't be your name. What's your real name?" And I say, "No, that's my name." So it's this, surely that can't be your name, or disbelief in that. And I think as a result, I also like, there were rumors that I was gay. There were like, people made fun of me for being gay as a child. So I definitely internalized the patriarchy, right? Um, and I think it was in college. I was a literature major, and went through a couple of years where all I did was feminist literature in Spanish and English. Chicana Feminisms was the course name of one of my classes, and that, I think that really helped me understand the patriarchy, and the damage it does to people. I think
Mhm.
there with I think even patriarchy and feminism, I think there's some gendered assumptions with that. That
Yeah,
feminism only benefits women. And I disagree with that completely. Or it can only be embraced by women. And
right.
I disagree with that as well. I think it should be embraced by men. It should be, men can learn a lot. They can undo a lot of the past, a lot of pain that has been inflicted upon them and that they've inflicted on others by understanding feminism. And then I think the patriarchy too. I think, for example, my mom, uh, Colombian. I think I learned a lot of the patriarchy from my mother, right?
Yeah.
Um, uh, and not maliciously, not even intentionally, just like, well, as a boy, you need to do this. As a boy, you know. Or there was, I didn't play sports in high school. And there was one time when my mom, when I was going to have my first child, and it's like, well, how are you going to teach him sports? Like, and I was like, does that even matter? Like, of all the things that a male can teach their son, like, sports should be at the top of the list.
Mhm.
Um, I think there's a lot of being human that should come before any of these other things. Right?
Yeah.
How to kindness, how to interact with others,
Mhm.
and
Well,
not
Yeah.
how to throw ball.
by the time we're of any age, 1 year old, 2 year old, we've had thousands of modelings and experiences in the systems and the cultures and the families that we live in. So I'm actually not at all surprised that in the systems that we are born and bred into, that by an early age, we've already adopted the implicit, unconscious, and explicit rules and customs. And to change the world, as we are trying to do in our work and help the world, we need to be having these conversations and supporting each other and finding ways to spread the word that we don't have to live in those. I always think of the Matrix. We have this box that we're born and bred to live in, and then we have experiences like being given a name that completely affect your life.
Mhm.
You think about how different you would have been had your name not been Kelly, but they named you, I don't know, Sean or something. I'm trying to think of an Irish type name and how different. I even sometimes think what how life would be different for me if my name was like Fritz,
Mm.
a psychologist or something. You never know. Um, I'm thinking a little bit about how as you're um, on the journey path of both being a parent and a clinician, are there things that you are now discovering, reimagining that's new to you now that wasn't there a few years ago, 5, 10 years ago?
Well, I think yeah, I'm there. Both of my kids went through a frozen phase, right? At a young age, and I
Frozen,
remember
like the Disney movie.
Frozen. Yes,
Yeah.
Frozen, like the Disney movie. Yeah, I cannot tell you how many times I've seen that movie. Um, and I think there was this point where my oldest child was wearing a lot of Frozen things, and I was upset. I was like concerned of like, what if he's made fun of? What if others pick on him because he's wearing Elsa clothes or whatever it was, has an Elsa lunchbox? And kind of coming to this realization that that did not align with my, I don't know if politics is the right word, but my belief system is probably the better phrase of like, I think anyone can use it. I don't think this means anything about my child's sexuality or anything like that. But the fact that it bothered me so much, like, took me back to being made fun of for having a girl's name, for being gay when I was younger. And there was this moment where I was like, oh, this is my work. And I don't want to put my anxiety of what I went through in the 80s and 90s into my child growing up today. Because these are different times, it's a different environment, right? They're growing up in Austin, Texas, and not in Columbus, Indiana in the 90s. It's very different. And so it's not fair for me to put my anxiety that I obviously was still hanging on to somehow, even though I didn't think I was, onto my child because this is not their experience. So kind of separating that, and like history doesn't have to repeat itself like that, right? That because I had this experience, therefore my child's going to have the same experience as I did, even though it's a different generation, different environment, different, many things have changed, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think there's a lot more inclusivity than there was
Yeah.
in the 80s and 90s.
Well, when you say I had this reaction in order to want to protect my child, I think about so many parents who their first instinct is to protect their children. And, I
Hmm.
will, encouraging kids to cut their hair or to dress a certain way because, well, I want to protect my child. And, well, we can't help how society is. And so
Hmm.
even if, they wanted things to be different, that it's actually more important to protect their child than to teach them a different way. And I'm
Hmm.
curious to know, I've had moments like that too inside myself where I go, oh, why do I want my child to change this thing about themselves when in fact it's me, I'm the one who needs to change. And then I find a new way to teach, my kids something similar, which is, oh, you can make your own choice, or you can do, what you want, or your hair doesn't define your gender, or your clothes don't define, and so I think that being a parent is millions of confrontations like that with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
And I'm wondering, how do you keep yourself open to that kind of change? How do you keep yourself open to learning from your kids instead of giving in to this is just how it is in our community?
mhm. Um, how to keep yourself open? Well, I think that allyship piece is important in keeping my just like there's a lot I can learn in being an ally. There's a lot that queer relationships can teach heterosexual relationships about so many things, right? Um, and I think there is also this piece of I think it's important to model that we are flawed, even as parents, even as adults, we're flawed humans, and I think it's important to apologize to kids. I think it's important to say, "Hey, we had this conversation last night, and I don't like the way I said this."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and so almost asking like for a little edit from last night's conversation,
Yeah.
right? If I don't like the way I said this, and or I think I spoke to you in a strong tone, and I don't
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
right? I think something that I this is a gender piece that I go back to in my conversations with all people, kids, that there's something when a male gets angry, there is something that happens in the nervous system of people around that is different than when a female gets angry or when a child gets angry, right? Maybe it is that there is something I
That
dabble in a
feels true
lot
to
of,
me. That feels
yep,
true to my nervous system. Yeah.
I dabble in evolutionary psychology. Maybe there's something about the tone and the pitch or the how loud male anger, male yelling can be that that people are in that room, their nervous systems go into danger, right?
Or
If you
alert.
see that,
Yeah.
yeah, if you see that, you can see everyone gets quiet in the room. If a male raises his voice, everyone is suddenly gets really quiet, right? That's fear. There's like a mini fight or flight moment that's happening. Even if you grow up with this like stereotypical angry dad, and oh, that's just the way he is. He gets angry, and I still love him. Um, there is something that that's harmful for the relationship, right? If 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 that anger, that temper is causing other people's nervous systems to go into fear, that's damaging to the relationship. So I think that's important. I think for and then the modeling piece, so for like yeah, it's okay to have emotions, and we also need to think about how our emotions or how our behaviors when we experience these emotions affect other people around us.
Yeah. I like to tell my kids, like I'll apologize quite a lot for my behavior and things that I said. And then I will say, you deserve better.
Mhm.
And you deserve to be spoken to in a really nice way. And then I will, try to model that part of it too. And it's radically different from some of the things that I've heard growing up, certainly. And I I wonder a lot about how, yeah, what you said is so resonant, that this is about like learning from kids on
Mhm.
how to be, and And I think maybe in many ways I have learned so much more from them than I have from all of like my clinical or all of the work that I've done in therapy, which is incredible and amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I like to think about how and reflect upon how we learn from them, but we learn a heck of a lot from our experience with them. Now they can teach us something directly, but we can also have lots of opportunities throughout their lives as well as ours to reflect upon something we learned. So now you've heard me tell the story of when my two kids decided they wanted to wear dresses to go out to Home Depot on my usual weekend warrior trip. Except my two kids at that point had been labeled by myself and society as boys. And if you know anything about New York, I'm born and raised in Brooklyn, but at this time I'm in Staten Island, and Staten Island is not the place where you take identified boys who are ages 2 and 4 wearing dresses. And if you had asked me hypothetically, Fritz, if this would have happened, what would you do? I'd let them wherever what they wanted. But I remember in my experience with them that that day it was a challenge as they were getting dressed and I was putting on the dresses and getting ready to go out. And I said, ooh, let's see what this is like. I'm a venturesome clinician. So I wanted to kind of test the bounds of my feelings because I thought I was quite liberal and quite open, but going out into a Staten Island shopping area with two beautiful kids, and they were beautiful in those dresses. I have pictures.
Mm.
Oh,
And at first they were posing for the pictures, and as time went on, as they got older, whenever I talked about showing anyone those pictures, they got more and more anxious
oh,
and more
Mhm.
ashamed. And I said, these were beautiful pictures, and I'm glad I did that that day. That day, you taught me a little bit about myself. The experience of having that happen with you taught me about myself, and that I had some flaws in me and some anxieties in me. And I'm thinking about, your kid there wearing Frozen stuff. This is far from a perfect world right now, very far.
Mhm.
So our children, by the time they're able to make choices, also know about all the implicit and explicit stuff that's going on there. And it's interesting that they feel safe enough in maybe the world that we've created for them. Like, I think that we like to
yeah.
think we made their life so safe that they can try things out. My now young 20 something sons, from time to time, one of them is always wearing nail polish, and the other one from time to time lets his girlfriend do his nails and he wears it. And I know that they know that the world is imperfect, and I think they're telling us something about themselves as they still test the bounds of this world. And so, yeah, I say that all to say that they can directly teach us things, but if we are dropping into ourselves and asking ourselves, what was that like for you? And maybe even getting curious to them, hey, the other day when I spoke to you that way, what was that like for you?
Mm.
And they might tell us it was terrible and they deserve better. They might tell us, who knows what they might tell us, but I've had many a times where when I've said to my kids, what was that like for you? Their way of responding to me was to tell me, I understood that you were upset. They had more emotional intelligence at their age than I did.
Mhm.
Or they told me about something else that I thought was innocuous that I didn't apologize for, and they told me that was problematic for them.
Mm.
Um, the learning goes on.
Yeah. Oh, I'm listening to these stories and I only hope that I, as a parent, can offer and create such a safe environment that my kids feel free to, yeah, to be themselves and to experiment in the ways that feel right for them. Um, I think about how so much is lost when that's not possible. And I think because my kids are so small, sometimes I worry, oh, how much will be lost as they grow up? How much of their tenderness and how much of their natural curiosity or their natural affection and their desire to, to come and hug and to see the goodness in other people.
Mm.
And that feels urgent to do in a world like the one that we live in, that we always have lived in. And so, yeah, those two stories, both your story, Kelly, and yours, Fritz, make me feel um, like, oh, that's so touching and amazing that you've, um, I guess, been able to see that you've created something in your homes that is different.
That is the hope. When I had really young children, people like older children like myself always said kind of grim things like, "Oh, they're cute now, but wait till they get older."
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know if I can take credit for setting it as a goal, but what I've noticed is as my kids have gotten older, if the prime directive was to always create safety, then they they have that kind, they can continue to have that kind of freedom with us. Another anecdote is I remember my son not too long ago, maybe when it was late 18, 19, said what would happen if I took a lighter and took an aerosol spray and sprayed. And so he was essentially asking me what's it like to do a flamethrower with hairspray. And I had a flash moment of, he feels comfortable to ask me that question. He's exploring something that he does not have to do like I did when I was his age. I would have definitely just tried it. And I see if you create that kind of safety ongoing while at the same time creating the boundaries and the parenting and all that, trying to stay away from the patriarchy and the mindless systems that we're indoctrinated in, but you're staying close to safety. I see them getting cuter. They're still cute to me.
Mm.
They don't smell as good, but they're still cute.
I like that. So you know you're doing it well if they get cuter, is what I'm hearing you say.
Um, you know, I think if I'm following what I practice, I have to give again, I don't think the credit's just me. It's like I think we thrive in safety and the world is not a safe place. So a lot of what you're noticing with your younger children, a lot of that will be attacked and punished and indoctrinated. And they're going to come home and they're going to share those things with you. And you're going to create that safety for them and a repository for them to come and workshop. What just happened today? Oh yeah, that does suck. Yeah, it is a thing that happens. What would you like to do with that now?
Yeah,
Do you want to know how I felt when that happened to me?
yeah, yeah. What's it? I'm curious to know from both of you. I mean, what is it like to know that you were the creator potentially of safe enough space for your kids? Um, what has that changed inside of you in terms of how you view yourself?
Hmm. That's a deep one.
It is. Um, so I think that there was a time when I don't know, early in elementary school when things were it was just uh, my dad would refer to it as like a minor miracle to get my kids out of the door on time to make it to school, right? And at one point, we had a lot of tardies, so many tardies, we got a letter from the school saying, kind of a finger wagging, and getting the feedback from my son of like, uh, Papa's angry when we're late, or Papa gets grumpy when we're late. my mornings are hard when Papa's taking me to school and just like feeling some disappointment or feeling like, oh, like, yeah, I know it's important to get the kids to school on time. I know it's not good and sends a bad message to the school, to the kid that it's okay to be late, right? I don't want to send that message, but I would rather send that message than having the message of Papa gets angry whenever we're running late. Or if I'm like waking up, I'm slow in the morning, Papa like I'm gonna have like an angry papa kind of riding me. So that was a little heartbreaking. And I had it, I just had to let go of being on time, and maybe wake him up a few minutes earlier, maybe try to get some things ready the night before. But it was also, again, the tardiness isn't the issue. It was my emotions and reactions towards the tardiness or towards like, oh, we're running late now. We can, if we get out the door in 1 minute, we can make it. And um, at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. But what matters is that relationship. So I just kind of had to do a 180 and just really shift my thinking about that. It's on
Yeah.
me to get them out the door on time, and it's also like on me to not be a grumpy dad because things aren't going my way.
Wow. Yeah. That is, I mean, if there are parents listening to this, I wonder how many of them will be like, wow, this is exactly my life story, that going out the door in the morning. I know that I certainly see myself in that, where I have often sat in the car thinking that did not go the way that I wanted it to. This doesn't represent
Mhm.
my values and who I am. And I really like that you said that you can't have, what is more important. And of course, for me, what's more important is the connection with the kids. And yeah, it's so good to know that you got lots of tardies, because now I feel like permission granted.
So,
Permission granted
so
to
many
everyone.
parties.
Just
Yeah.
get tardies. It's okay.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh,
We
that
can.
question was deep for me because the number, I would say the overarching number of times I kept it safe, obviously way outnumbered the number of times I remember I didn't. But now I can tell you as a parent, probably going on 8 or 9 years removed from having to get people out on time. From this perspective, you only regret the few times you lost your cool. And so if you could come into the present day moment of young children and you're trying to getting them out the door on time today does not matter compared to the regret you may have years from now. When anything goes wrong, you're going to wonder whether it's that time you lost your temper.
Mm.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
touched upon how the male or the identified male's anger, the male often is the physically most strongest person and the most explosive person in the household. So there's threat of annihilation, and I mean that annihilation, total destruction. It probably
Mhm.
most likely comes from the male in space. So if that being becomes a nuclear reactor and becomes somewhat unhinged in the moment, everybody is in danger. And all you need is a few times in the life cycle of a child to have that happen for there to be irrevocable neurological damage to them. And
Mm.
so I remember telling myself that back then, and that said, you need to calm your jets because if you go nuclear, you will destroy everybody and in your future relationships. So now, as I get along with my kids and they get along with me and they come to me, they still come to mom even more. I recognize that we created enough safety in our relationship for them to be who they are. And, it feels like very satisfying. I do get satisfaction out of those moments where I go to give either one of them a hug and they give it back and it feels warm and snuggly like it did when they were little.
Yeah. That sounds amazing. Create safety and listen to the discomfort inside of you as that's your growth. Yeah. I could talk to both of you for hours. Kelly, it's been so nice to talk to you. I wonder if you could give us like a an idea that you're thinking about, or maybe something that you're working towards, or something maybe that you're doing that is so counter to what is the social norm, um, or what is expected, or maybe it's like an idea that you have that is about like this thing will save relationship and like build connection, but it's like not a popular practice. I'm curious to know if there's anything like that that's either like bubbling for you or that you're actually doing or working your way up to.
Um, so I have been I've been thinking about parenting and specifically I've been thinking a lot about boys, right? And parenting for boys and sex education for boys as well. So I think that's something on my mind, something percolating, something I'm working on. I for a while I had this like tentative working title of some kind of a book called Better Boys, and I think I'm going to revisit that title, but that's what it was in my mind for a while. Um, I think something that at one point I was like, okay, when does this my kids are very affectionate. They hold, they still snuggle with me. They hold my hands in public. And at one point, I thought, okay, when is this no longer developmentally appropriate for them, for us to express affection this way? When will people start to think of it looks weird that this man is holding hands with this teenager, for example? And I think I think I got to a point where I was just like, let it go, right? That wasn't a Frozen reference, by the way, but just like who cares? Maybe others will judge. Maybe others will be like, that's weird, and who cares? Like maybe men showing affection, men showing emotion. Like often my kids will see me cry in a movie, will see me cry at church or something like that, and they'll put their arm around me and say, "It's okay, my bud." And it's I think there is something that is kind of radical in men being very affectionate, right? It kind of it maybe that's my own way of undoing patriarchal norms of like it's okay for men to cry, it's okay for men to model crying. It's and so not just like it's okay, but let's encourage it. Let's model that. Let's
Awesome.
model affection, right? Let's model men greeting other men with a big hug, right? And and that doesn't and that's okay. So I like that.
That's
And I
great.
feel like the patriarchy was trying to kind of creep in and say, hold on, you don't like affection with young kids is fine, but at a certain age that needs to stop. What is that modeling?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm, yeah.
we've got
That's
a lot
really
of,
good.
yeah, we've got a lot of indoctrinations that we need each other to, and we need our experiences and we need our check-ins to kind of, oh, I just noticed that. Oh, thank you, part of myself, for just noticing that. Or thank you, whoever's around me, for helping me notice that. You know?
Yeah, let me jump on that and say like I felt like I talked about this point in college where I was like really into feminism and feminist literature, and that was like the start of my unlearning a lot of the things I had learned about what it was to be a male in the world. what if we didn't have to do that unlearning, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because there, like, the patriarchy and these like very strict gender roles of boys need to be like this. If we want them to grow up to be this kind of man, they have to do this. What if they don't learn that? Right? I
Wow.
think that it's so hard to unlearn things. How beautiful it would be if we didn't have to unlearn certain things that we thought about gender
Yeah.
and things like
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that would be a wonderful new world.
that.
Yeah. What a great invitation, Kelly, for men to be affectionate, more affectionate, and to model affection and be open to it. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's just let's be the change we need to see in the world.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Thanks so much, Kelly. This was a wonderful conversation.
You're very welcome. I've had a lot of fun talking to both of you. Great to meet you, Fritz.
No problem. I'm inspired. I'm gonna go home and hug my kids now.